Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we are unpacking exactly why SOC 2 compliance has quietly become the absolute ultimate gatekeeper for closing massive B2B enterprise deals. Literally, if you're building a company that handles customer data, you absolutely cannot afford to ignore this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with a real-world wake-up call, break down what SOC 2 actually is, pinpoint who needs it, compare the two main report types, and then we're going to reveal the true financial cost. All right, Section 1, the $2.3 million phone call. Let's look at a scenario that perfectly highlights the massive financial stakes of ignoring security compliance until the very last minute. $2.3 million? That staggering number is the exact value of an annual contract a startup founder lost because of a single missing certification. Let's call this founder David. He just landed a meeting with his absolute dream customer, a Fortune 500 healthcare giant. His SaaS platform was a perfect fit, the demo was totally flawless, and the procurement team loved it. But then, procurement asked one simple question. Can you send over your SOC 2 Type 2 report? Well, David didn't have it. In fact, he hadn't even heard of SOC 2 until that exact moment. Now, the dream deal didn't die instantly, but it stalled for 8 agonizing months while he scrambled to get compliant. And by the time he finally had his report, that enterprise buyer had already signed with a competitor who was fully compliant from day one. Ouch. Moving to Section 2, understanding SOC compliance. So, what exactly is this framework that holds the power to completely freeze multi-million-dollar contracts in their tracks? At its core, SOC 2, which stands for Service Organization Control 2, is a security framework developed by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Simply put, it proves to your enterprise customers that you have the proper controls in place to protect their most sensitive information. You aren't just pinky promising you're secure, an independent auditor is actually verifying it. Now, where does SOC 2 fit into the bigger picture? Unlike healthcare standards like HIPAA or payment standards like PCI DSS, SOC 2 isn't legally mandated, but because it is heavily demanded by US-based enterprise buyers, it is practically a mandatory entry ticket if you want to win serious B2B deals. When you undergo an audit, the framework evaluates you against 5 trust service criteria. Security is the mandatory foundation. Literally, everyone has to build upon it, covering essentials like access controls and incident response. The other 4 are optional. Our sources usually recommend starting with just security for your first SOC 2. It's faster and cheaper, unless your customers specifically demand criteria like confidentiality or availability right out of the gate. Section 3. Who actually needs it? Let's figure out exactly which businesses are squarely in the crosshairs of these enterprise compliance demands. If you operate a SaaS platform, SOC 2 is basically how you move up market. If you're a managed service provider handling client networks, it's absolutely critical to prove you deserve that terrifying level of trust. And for fintech companies, the stakes are astronomical, with breached payment systems sometimes causing losses exceeding $750 million. The sheer scale of this procurement reality is honestly staggering. An overwhelming 85% of Fortune 500 buyers require SOC 2 before you even start a pilot. Over 95% of financial institutions demand it before they'll even have a discussion with you. If you're selling to these groups without it, you are simply hitting a brick wall. Section 4, Type 1 versus Type 2. When those enterprise buyers ask for your SOC 2, they're usually looking for one of 2 specific audit types. Let's break those down really quickly. Think of Type 1 as a point-in-time snapshot. It proves your security is designed correctly on one specific day. It's much faster, taking about 2 to 3 months, and it's great for unblocking urgent deals. Type 2, however, is the gold standard. It proves those controls actually operated effectively over a 6 to 12-month period. Most enterprise buyers will happily accept a Type 1 initially, but they're definitely going to expect that robust Type 2 within 12 to 18 months. Section 5, the true cost of compliance. Let's tackle the hardest part of the conversation, the timeline, the required effort, and of course, the financial investment. The journey to certification typically follows 4 rigorous phases. You start with scoping, deciding which criteria to actually test. Then comes gap analysis to see exactly where your current security falls short. Next up is implementation, where you build the policies and technical controls. Fair warning, this is where most companies struggle the most. Finally, an independent CPA comes in and conducts the audit. And here's the true cost breakdown for that entire process. It's a significant heavy lift, costing anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 in the first year alone. This heavily depends on your starting point, honestly. If you have to spend a lot on gap remediation consulting or deploying new security software tools, you're going to be on the higher end of that spectrum before you even pay the CPA firm for the actual audit. Yes, compliance is incredibly expensive. It's a tough pill to swallow for a growing company. But let's put this into perspective. Compare that maximum $200,000 investment against the alternatives. You could easily lose a massive contract worth 500 grand or more. Or worse, you could suffer a data breach, which in 2024 carried an average totally devastating cost of $4.45 million. Suddenly, 200 grand looks like a really smart insurance policy. And hey, even if you don't suffer a breach, lacking SOC 2 hurts your day-to-day operations. You're actively choosing to endure painful, stalled sales cycles. Your team is going to spend hours manually filling out hundreds of soul-crushing custom security spreadsheets from prospects. Your customer acquisition costs will absolutely spike. And most importantly, you're handing a massive free advantage to your security-conscious rivals who already have their certification. Ultimately, the SOC 2 certificate is just the final proof. The real benefit is becoming a secure, resilient company with controls that actually stop attackers and protect your customers' data. Which leaves us with one final, provocative question to consider. Is your lack of SOC 2 compliance already costing you your next big enterprise deal? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this provided a clear roadmap for your own security journey.